ဒီနေ့ယောဂီများကိုဗတ္တိကရတ္တသုတ်တံတရားကိုဟောပါမယ်ဗတ္တိကရတ္တသုတ်တံကိုမူတည်ပြီးတော့အခြေခံထားပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာရှုနည်းကိုဟောပါမယ်
Today, for the yogi, Sierra explained, he will expound on Bhattika Ratta Sutta. Bhattika Ratta Sutta. Based on this sutta, how we have to build on to practice Vipassana, Sierra will proceed.
အဲဒီဗတ္တိကရတ္တသုတ်တံကိုမဟောမီမနေ့ကဟောထားတဲ့ဓာရုခန္ဓောပမသုတ်တံနောက်ပိုင်းနည်းနည်းကြံပါသေးတယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုခုဆက်ပြီးတော့ဟောပါမယ်
Before Sierra touch on today's discourse, as Darukhanopama Sutta, the topic that was Sierra preaching yesterday, the last part a little more needs to touch. So Sierra will continue on that topic.
မြတ်စွာဘုရားရှင်ဟာအဲဒီဂင်္ဂမိကမ်းနားမှာယဟန်တော်များကိုတရားဟောနေတဲ့အခါယဟန်တော်များရဲ့ပရိသတ်အစွန်ကနေပြီးတော့မောင်နန္ဒာလို့ခေါ်တဲ့နွားကြောင်သားတယောက်ကလည်းအဲ့ဒီတရားပွဲမှာတရားနာနေပါတယ်တရားပွဲပြီးလို့ပရိသတ်များပြန်သွားကြတဲ့အခါနွားကြောင်သားဖြစ်တဲ့မောင်နန္ဒာကမြတ်စွာဘုရားရှင်ထံလာရောက်ပြီးတော့မြတ်စွာဘုရားဟောတော်မူတဲ့အင်္ဂါ၈ပါးရှိတဲ့သစ်သုံးတဲ့တူတဲ့တရားဟာဒီပြီးတော်မှာရှိပါတယ်ဒါကြောင့်ဒီပြီးတော်ကိုမြတ်စွာဘုရားကယဟန်ခံဖို့ရန်အတွက်ခွင့်ပြုလို့မှာဘုရားလို့ဘုရားကိုသူကလာလျှောက်ပါတယ်
As Lord Buddha was explaining near the Ganges River on that Dhamma topic where Sierra was preaching yesterday, while Lord Buddha was preaching the Dhamma, there was a cowherd or a young man whose name was called Maunanda. He had been listening from one corner while Buddha was preaching. So after the discourse, Maunanda approached to the Lord Buddha and he reported that, "O Buddha, the 8 factors that you have given as a simile, as a lock, all those Dhamma were present in me. So please ordain me as a bhikkhu."
Maunanda ကဗုဒ္ဓထံလာရောက်ပြီးတော့ယဟန်ပြုဖို့ရန်အခွင့်တောင်းတဲ့အခါကျတော့ဗုဒ္ဓကမောင်နန္ဒသင်ဟာသူတစ်ပါးရဲ့နွားကိုအခစားနဲ့ထိတ်ကြောင်းရတဲ့နွားကြောင်သားဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်ဒီနွားတွေကိုသူ့ပိုင်ရှင်ထံသွားပြီးတော့အနှံလိုက်ပါပိုင်ရှင်ထံနွားတွေအနှံပြီးတဲ့အခါကျတော့မှငါဘုရားထံလာပါလို့ဗုဒ္ဓကသူ့အမရှိပါဘူး
When Maunanda asked permission from Lord Buddha to ordain him as a bhikkhu or a monk, then Buddha told him that as you are a cowherd, you have to look after the cows. So those cows will belong to your owner. So now it is your duty to go and give it back to your owner and then afterwards come back to me.
ဘုရားကအဲ့လိုမရှိတဲ့ခါကျတော့နွားကြောင်သားမောင်နန္ဒဟာနွားတွေကိုသူ့ပိုင်ရှင်ထံသွားအားပြီးတော့ဗုဒ္ဓထံပြန်လာတယ်ပြန်လာပြီးတဲ့အခါဗုဒ္ဓထံမှာယဟန်ခံဖို့ရန်အတွက်ဖြစ်တောင်းတယ်ဗုဒ္ဓကသူ့ရဲ့ပါရမီဉာဏ်ကိုသိတော်မူတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့ မောင်နန္ဒာကိုယဟန်ခံပြီးလိုက်တယ်
After he had given back all the cars to his owner, then he came back to the Lord Buddha. As he asked permission from the Lord Buddha to ordain him as a bhikkhu, Lord Buddha, seeing that he had lots of perfection, so he was ordained as a bhikkhu.
Buddha Dhamma Yahan Khan Khoyara Khajaro Yahan Pipi the now Buddha Tugo the Tibatan Deya Suman Pwamya Niri Bi Vido Deya Atu Kaide Kama Machiami Kala Twima Vini Maunanda Yahaha Yahanda Pitom Wari.
After his ordination as a bhikkhu, then he took Satipatthana Dhamma practice as expounded by the Lord Buddha, and after he had learned this Satipatthana Dhamma practice, he practiced, and soon after that he attained arahatship.
The Daru Khando Bama Dudango Do Najaya de Dwajamu Tayaya the Votayago, Punyatama, Titimimi Pipola de Akama Buddha Pire, Vipasana Nine Shuman Pwamya Dwalo, Maunanda Yahanda, Pito Murago, Poksado Api The Tamaya Lan Yang Mankane Soyen Nipi Lampiare Bugule Shire Mimiga Leve Lulu Jinjin Atume Soyen Siye Du Chanda Du Ajamoho Pinya Tadu Pinya Matadu Ajamoho Zwelunga Udia Tabiro Nigu Maso Pitipatan Lan Yang Mankandwa Atume Soyen Nigu Maso Dea Yanagari.
When the bhikkhu Maunanda, as he had listened, Daru Khando Pama Sutta, while he was listening, those factors in the Dhamma were enlightened in his mind through his perfection. So after he had taken up this vipassana practice, he attained arahatship. Sarah explained that by seeing this example, if there is a teacher who can teach you properly, and if you are practicing the right method as you are told, and if you diligently practice by seeing this Arahat Maunanda, you can see that anybody can attain arahatship. Whether you are rich or poor, whether you are educated or uneducated, whomsoever is, if they are really practicing well in the right method with the guidance of the good teacher, anybody can attain the Dhamma, can achieve the Dhamma ends.
No young day, a sit down mother here, Maunanda Vivi, Yahanda Pinai de Suro, who Dimatia, Sumani Yada Yogi, Maunanda Te, a Pipin Yayo, a Tapin Yayo, you see Uzradua, Sazaya, Valone Buguri, Pite Gajamu, who Tia Tiny Yada, Humani Yada Yogi, Dimia Leve, Buddha Bede, Nima Lama and Dai, Tiago Atu Gomez, Soyin, Daru Kando Bama Dotan, Tiago, a two hello green viro, Namuna Uviro, Yuzabi Atu Gomez, Soyin, the Yogi, Leve, Majami, Gala Dima, Yahanda, Pinai Lime, Pongigaro Yunkiware.
Sarah explained, as shown in the story, this Arahat Maunanda, before he became Arahat, he was the cowherd. So as if we have to level up his status, then he is the lowest level in the humankind. So even that Maunanda could achieve Arahatship, then Sarah liked to stress to all the yogis in this hall that you all have better knowledge than him. You all have better education than him. You all have the standard of wealth are better than him. So, based on all these qualities in you, after listening to this Darukhandopama Sutta, then you have to dwell in your mind and reflect it time and again as you goes on practice. If you are practicing well, then for the yogis too, they can attain the arahatship at any time, and Sayadaw says he had faith in you all. Sayadaw like to know, do you all accept Sayadaw's preaching? So Sayadaw explained that if you all accept Sayadaw's preaching, after all, this is the discourse expounded by the Lord Buddha. So if you have faith in this discourse and if you remember these facts, then if you can really practice, so you all can achieve arahatship. Now Sayadaw will proceed with Bhattikarata Sutta. Based on this sutta, we need to proceed and practice.
Bhattikarata Sutta Asuraha Adibba Pianlayin Mingala Shigo Kaundo Nyatanya Dibba Yawari.
Sayadaw explained the meaning of Bhattikarata. Bhattikarata means it is glorious or a good night time.
Bhattikarata Dhamma Buddha Nujarawaga Tibatan Vipassana Shumani Yogi Myaha Longka a take Ayong Dui who live Since Avido Maniau, Machansiawu Mapit read Anaga Ayong Dui who live Machansiawu Edulu a take Anaga Kala Nabago Kala Nababo Masigo Mayoki Vene It's open Ayong the Kude Bohada Tiago Shumabalo Sayadaw
explained the gist meaning of this discourse. As for the yogi who are practicing Satipatthana, to what kind of object they have to contemplate? That is, they shouldn't go back to the past incidences. That means not to think or remember about the past things or past memories. And at the same time, you shouldn't think to the future, what is going to happen and so forth. This too shouldn't crop up in your mind. So in that way, we should expel in our mind the past and the future, but we need to keep our mind only at the present moment.
Ate Ayong Suraha Longkabi Pide Dwajamo Mashiro Waudua A Longkabi Pide Ayong Sura Mashiro Chokdwavi Yagdwavi Mashire Ayong Chokyanguare Ayong the Kugo Kian Sabiro Vipassana Shude Soyin Mama Soyin Eddie Yogiha the Madi Makenawawu.
So the past incidences or all the memories means that have already happened. That they have already ceased. They were already abolished. So to the past memories or the past incidences, when they were absent, but in your mind, if you reflect or think, then it is not easy for one to achieve samadhi. There will be no samadhi, no concentration.
Atashi Tadawa Manamia မျက်စိကမြင်တဲ့အာယုန်တွေကိုခံစားခဲ့ဘူးတယ်နားကကြားတဲ့အာယုန်တွေကိုလည်းပဲခံစားခဲ့ဘူးတယ်ထို့အတူပဲနှာခေါင်းရှားပါးစပ်ကိုယ်ဒီအာယုန်တွေဟာဒီအာယုန်တွေကိုလည်းပဲသူကခံစားခဲ့ဘူးတယ်မိမိခံစားခဲ့ဘူးတဲ့အာယုန်တွေကိုတတိပဒံတရားရှုမှတ်နေတဲ့အခါမှာပြန်ပြီးတော့ဒီတရားတတ်ပါတယ်ပြန်တွေးပြီးတော့တတိယတတ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါလို့ပြန်တွေးပြီးတော့တတိယနေတဲ့အခါမှာပြစ္ဆုတ်ပံမှာပေါ်နေတဲ့ရှုမှတ်ရမယ့်အာယုန်တွေကသူကလက်လွတ်သွားတယ်လွတ်သွားတဲ့အခါကျတော့အတိတ်အာယုန်ပေါ်မှာမျောပါနေတဲ့ယောဂီတယောက်ဟာသမာဓိတရားမဖြစ်တော့ဘူးဒါကြောင့်မို့ကျော်လွန်သွားပြီဖြစ်တဲ့ချုပ်ပြုတ်သွားပြီဖြစ်တဲ့အတိတ်အာယုန်တွေကိုစဉ်းစားတွေးတော့ပြီးတော့မနေဘဲနဲ့လက်ရှိပြစ္ဆုတ်ပံအာယုန်ပေါ်မှာသာစုစိုက်ပြီးတော့သမာဓိဖြစ်အောင်ရှုမှတ်ဖို့ဘုရားကညွှန်ကြားတော်မူခြင်းဖြစ်တယ်
In the past too, from our sense of seeing, we have enjoyed to the sense object or senses pleasure. Likewise, from our ear base, from the nose base, from the tongue and from the body. So, to these sensual pleasures as an object, while we are noting in this Satipatthana Dhamma practice, at times it will crop up in your mind as a memory, or you will remember it very often. So in that way, if you are remembering time and again, instead of keeping our sati or mindfulness on the present object, then you are failing to note the present object that is occurred in your meditation field at that present moment. So that's why Sarah explained it is very important not to think back or not to memorize about the past incidences or the past memories. It is very important or crucial for your noting mind to put on the present object precisely and attentively. That is the way Buddha expounded.
Now, Anaga Ayung Suraha, a Chizibu, Mapozibu. မဖြစ်သေးတဲ့မပေါ်သေးတဲ့အနာဂတ်အာယုန်တွေကိုစိတ်ကူးစဉ်းစားကြံတွေးပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီအနာဂတ်အာယုန်ပေါ်မှာဖြစ်လို့တဲ့ဆန္ဒတွေမျောပြီးတော့အာယုန်ထဲမှာပါနေမယ်ဆိုရင်လည်းပဲဒီယောဂီဟာသမာဓိမဖြစ်နိုင်ဘူးဒါကြောင့်မဖြစ်သေးတဲ့အနာဂတ်အာယုန်တွေအပေါ်မှာလည်းပဲစိတ်ကူးစဉ်းစားကြံတွေးပြီးတော့မနေပဲလက်ရှိပြစ္ဆုတ်ပံအာယုန်ပေါ်မှာသာလျှင်ဝိပဿနာရှုဖို့ရန်အတွက်ဘုရားကညွှန်ကြားခြင်းဖြစ်တယ်
Now shall come to touch with the future object. So for the future, these objects haven't yet happened. So, but with your imagination, how it will happen, or from your speculative mind, how it is and so forth, then in your mind flow, you will be carried away with all these thoughts that have not yet really happened. So that's why you cannot accumulate samadhi or concentration. So Sarah explained that's why Buddha expounded to the Dhamma practitioner that they shouldn't imagine or think for the future, but it is very important for one to keep the mind on the present moment or on the present object.
အတိတ်အာယုန်တွေဆိုတာလည်းပဲမရှိတော့ဘူးသူကချုပ်ပြောက်ပြီးတော့သွားပြီအနာဂတ်အာယုန်ဆိုတာကလည်းပဲမဖြစ်ပေါ်သေးဘူးပေါ်မလာသေးဘူးအဲ့တော့အတိတ်အာယုန်ဆိုတာအတိတ်အာယုန်ရောအနာဂတ်အာယုန်ပါဒီအာယုန်နှစ်ခုဟာမရှိတဲ့တရားဖြစ်တယ်မရှိတဲ့တရားကိုအရှိထင်ပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာရှုလို့မရဝိပဿနာရဲ့နယ်ပယ်ဆိုတာဟာရှိနေတဲ့ဖြစ်စေပေါ်စေတရားကိုသာရှုလို့ရတယ်ပေါ်နေတဲ့ဖြစ်နေတဲ့တရားကိုလည်းပဲမဖြစ်အောင်တားဆီးလို့မရဘူးချုပ်ပြောက်သွားတဲ့မရှိတဲ့တရားကိုလည်းပဲရှိအောင်ဖန်ဆင်းလို့မရဘူးအဲ့ဒါလို့ ချုပ်ပြောက်သွားတဲ့အာယုန်တွေချုပ်ပြောက်ပြီးတဲ့အာယုန်တွေမဖြစ်သေးတဲ့အာယုန်တွေပေါ်မှာရှာဖွေပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာရှုနေမယ်ဆိုရင်စဉ်းစားပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာရှုနေမယ်ဆိုရင်စိတ်ကူးရင်တက်တက်တာဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့သမာဓိမဖြစ်နိုင်ဘူး
In the line of our Dhamma practice, the past incidences were not present anymore, and also the future incidences too were not yet really happened. So that means all these objects, both the past have already gone and the future not yet have come. So if all these are really absent in the reality world, and if you are thinking these objects are real, and if you are noting as a vipassana, then this is not in the line of this vipassana practice. Vipassana practice means we have to focus on the accurate present object and note it precisely. But instead, if we fail to note the present object, what is occurred in you at the moment, but if you are carried away with your imagination or mind to the object that have not yet happened or that have already passed off, then if you are in that line, you are staying in the imaginative line. That's why you cannot accumulate samadhi or concentration.
Solo yimaga ate anaga tesukpan lo kala 3 မျိုးရှိတဲ့အနေကအတိတ်နဲ့အနာဂတ်ဟာဝိပဿနာရှုလို့မရသောကာလဖြစ်တယ်။ပစ္စုပ္ပန်စီသာလင်ဝိပဿနာရှုလို့ရတဲ့ကာလဖြစ်တယ်။ဒါကြောင့်မို့ဝိပဿနာအာယုံမှန်သမျှဟာပစ္စုပ္ပန်ကာလမှာပေါ်နေတဲ့တရားကိုသာရှုပါလို့ညွှန်ကြားခြင်းဖြစ်တယ်။
So as a time factor, we have to divide as the past, present, and the future. So when we take up this vipassana Dhamma practice, we need to keep our mind at the present time or present moment. So if we can live up only to the present moment, then we are practicing vipassana.
ပစ္စုပ္ပန်အာယုံကိုရှုလို့သမာဓိဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတာကိုတော့ယောဂီတွေအားလုံးနားလည်ပါတယ်။သမာဓိဆိုတဲ့တရားကိုသူနဲ့အဓိပ္ပာယ်တူဖြစ်တဲ့ဧကဂတဆိုတဲ့ပုံနဲ့ပြောပြရင်ပို့ပြီးတော့သဘောပေါက်နားလည်လွယ်တယ်။ဧကဂတဆိုတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ပုတ်ခွဲလိုက်ရင်ဧကကတပုတ်ဧကကတပုတ်တာကတပုတ်အဲ့ဒါလို့သုံးပုတ်ကွဲထွက်လာပါတယ်ဧကဆိုတာကတစ်ခုဧကဆိုတာကအာယုံတာဆိုတာကဖြစ်နေတာဒိဝေကိုပေါင်းလိုက်တော့အာယုံတစ်ခုတည်းမှာဖြစ်နေတဲ့သဘောဖြစ်နေတဲ့ဆိုတာအာယုံတစ်ခုတည်းမှာစိတ်ကအဆုစိုက်ပြီးနေတဲ့သဘောစိတ်ကဘယ်မှမသွားဘဲနဲ့ရှုမှန်းနေတဲ့အာယုံတစ်ခုတည်းပေါ်မှာသာလျှင်စိတ်ကဆုစိုက်ပြီးတော့တည်ကြည်နေတဲ့သဘောကိုသမာဓိလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီသမာဓိဖြစ်ဖို့အရေးဟာပစ္စုပ္ပန်အာယုံကိုရှုမှတ်ဖြစ်နိုင်တယ်
Shara explained, as the meditators have already come to understand, by living at the present moment or noting to the present occurrences, you accumulate samadhi or concentration. So to come to understand this word, samadhi or concentration, Shara likes to show with the equivalent another word that is called ekakata. This ekakata is to divide it into ekakata is to divide it into 3 parts. The first part is eka, the second part is ega, and the last one is ta. So eka means this is one. Then the middle part is the object. The last star or the last part is occurring or happening at the present moment. So that means if we combine the whole sentence, then our mind is focusing on one object that is happening or occurring at the present moment. So to this word samadhi means when our mind is directing or focusing on the object, our mind never wavers or wanders anywhere. It will fix on the object and completely knowing thorough about the object. So that means we need to observe to the present object, then we will be able to accumulate samadhi.
Oh, Dimara, Honda Binahu, Shumamu Pitavari, Hong Pei Suraga, Ayumbe, Hong Pego, Money that a thickly out of his state. Ayum, Hong Pei Ayum Bomha, Shumani that sick. The key needed so yin, suicide video, pinny so yin. Pound a kaima, pinny that Yodia Nandia Mia, Chipia Bogo, Pilalime. Pay the kaima, humani that Sigliga, Tini needed so yin. Pay the kaima, humani that Boni that Yodia Nandia, Chipia Bogo, Pilalime. The Yona dea, Chipia Bogo, Vaja see the Lelo Suro. Hong Pui Kore, Ayo Bomba, Tamadi Sigliga, Tini Lu. Tia de Bowe, Dayao, Tamadi dea Suraha, she say Ayungo, Shumama, Tamadi Pide, so the Alokin Sare, Tamadi Shima, a thick Pinyari, Vibadana Nyani, Polare Sura Leve Alokin Shawani.
In this meditational practice, we were asked to note on the rising and falling of our abdomen. This rising and falling of our abdomen is the object, and the focusing mind or the noting mind is our mind. So while our mind is focused on the object, for example, if we are following the rising of the abdomen, so as our mind is attentively noting on this rising phenomenon, as we accumulate with our concentration, we will come to understand the arising and perishing of this mind and matter nature from the rising phenomenon. Likewise, when we are following from our mind with the falling phenomenon, then we will be seeing the happening or the occurring and perishing away of this mind and matter from the falling phenomenon. Why we are coming to understand in that way means because our mind never wanders off to anywhere else but fixed on the rising phenomenon, nor maybe fixing on the falling phenomenon. So in that way our mind is fixed on the object, and that is the time we are accumulating samadhi or concentration. So this is, Sarah explained, this is very obvious how we accumulate concentration in ourselves while we are noting so. So if we accumulate concentration, concentration will conduce or reveal that meditator to see what is really happening to these mind and matter flux. So in that way you will be attaining vipassana wisdom step by step.
Pompi Kore Ayune, Mandesiha, Che Gai Pinigo, Lure Ayun Zigo, Humanetiga, we own Linegule Yiki. Boni de Pompi Ayungo, Humanetiga, we own Linema, Tamadi Pite. Humanetiga Ayun Tet, so Viro, you be Yoni Le, Tamadi Muchebu. Long be there, Maguire. Are you not Chan Bidole, Yan Yibidole, Maniabu? Are you never Mansek Nakuha? She got Chipido, ရှုမှတ်ဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုအာယုန်နဲ့မှတ်စိတ်ခြေကိုက်ဖြစ်နေမှသမာဓိဆိုတာဖြစ်တယ်သမာဓိဖြစ်မှဝိပဿနာဉာဏ်ဆိုတာပေါ်လာနိုင်တယ်
Sarah explained it is very important to note accurately to the object. Accurately means not only it should be accurate, but it must be concurrent. The noting mind and the noting object should be concurrent. They should couple together. So, if as we are noting, supposing your noting mind is focusing on the object which have not yet arisen, then that means your noting mind is earlier than the real object that is to occur. Or sometimes our noting mind is late. It cannot catch the object which has already gone off. So if our noting mind is not concurrent to the object what we have to note, then we are not noting at the present moment. So that's why our noting mind shouldn't be earlier nor it should be late, but it should be concurrently and accurately noting. If we are noting that way, we sure would achieve samadhi, and samadhi will conduce one to achieve vipassana wisdom.
ဟောင်းပေအာယုံကိုရှုမှတ်တဲ့အခါမှာဟောင်းတဲ့အာယုံရဲ့အစနဲ့အဆုံးကိုမှီအောင်ပြီးအောင်မှတ်ဖို့လိုတယ်။ပိန်တဲ့အာယုံရဲ့အစနဲ့အဆုံးကိုမှီအောင်ထိထိမိမိဖြစ်အောင်မှတ်နိုင်ဖို့လိုတယ်။အဲ့ဒါလို့အစနဲ့အဆုံးနှစ်ပိုင်းကိုမှီအောင်လိုက်နိုင်ပြီးတော့ထိထိမိမိမှတ်နိုင်ပြီဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒီယောဂီဟာအကြာမီကာလမှာသမာဓိဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတာပါပဲ
When we are noting the rising and falling of our abdomen, if we are following the rising from our abdomen, we must be able to follow from the moment as it arises till the process of that rising ends. Then in that way we have to note it precisely from beginning to the end of the rising phenomenon. Likewise, if we are following the falling phenomenon in our abdomen, then we need to note it attentively from beginning to the end of the process. Only if we are noting attentively, precisely and concurrently, then very soon, if that yogi is able to do so, then one will accumulate samadhi.
ဒါကြောင့်ယောဂီတွေသမာဓိဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ခဲ့တဲ့သဘောတရားဟာအဲ့ဒီဖောင်းပေအာယုံကိုမီအောင်မမှတ်နိုင်တာရဲ့ထိထိမိမိမမှတ်နိုင်တာရဲ့အဲ့ဒါလို့မီအောင်မမှတ်နိုင်ခြင်းနဲ့ထိထိမိမိမမှတ်နိုင်ခြင်းတို့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့ယောဂီတွေမှာသမာဓိဖြစ်နှေးနေတာရဲ့သမာဓိဖြစ်နောက်ကျနေတာရဲ့အဲ့လိုယောဂီတွေမှာဖြစ်နေပါတယ်
Shara explains for the yogis who are unable to note this rising and falling phenomenon of our abdomen, not concurrently, or we are not noting concurrently, or we are not noting attentively, then that yogi is unable to accumulate concentration, or yogi is slow in accumulating concentration.
Who yogi do you? မြတ်ပေးတဲ့ဥပမာလေးနဲ့ဝိပဿနာရှုပုံကိုဆက်ပြီးတော့ပြောပြမယ်
Now Sarah will give an example how you throw darts, D-A-R-T as darts, how you have to play. Sarah explain.
မြတ်ပြမှန်းကိုပြတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာပြလိုက်တဲ့အခါမှာမိမိပြလိုက်တဲ့မြတ်ဟာပြမှန်းစီကိုမရောက်ဘဲနဲ့လမ်းခုလမ်းမှာကျသွားတဲ့မြတ်လည်းရှိတယ်ဒုတိယမြတ်ကမိမိပြလိုက်တဲ့မြတ်ဟာပြမှန်းကိုတော့ထိတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ပြမှန်းကထိရုပ်ပဲထိတယ်သူကပေါအောင်မပြနိုင်ဘူးအဲ့ဒီလိုမြာမျိုးလည်းရှိတယ် Tatia Nyaga, Pilay that Hama, Pimman let Chile, Bow on le, who got out twin bidole, the pedal Yaga out, over on level to a pony day. Edo, Nyalesi, Nya don't you see it.
Sarah explained when one is throwing the darts onto the target or trying to aim to hit the bullseye of the target, there can be of three ways. One is that dart cannot reach the target. In the middle of the way, it dropped. That is one kind. And the second kind is it hit the target, but not to the center, and it cannot pierce it. That is the second kind. And the third kind is it not only hit the target, but it hit the bullseye and pierced the bullseye in the center. So while we are noting to the object, we should note like number 3 darts.
Eri Mia Tongingo, Yogi Mia, Namuna Tabiro, Itabulu Ate. Patama Pelida Mia, Patama Mia. Pelaide Pimanzi do Mayawene, Lakulama, to Jadware. Babilo di Mia, Pimanzi do Mayawene, Lanjama, Jadwa the Lesushi. Pelaide Aga, Miu. Yapi the Maya Aga. Me there Dwayamo, Aga Luni there Dwayamo, Aga never at Dwayamo, Ipiaha, Pimanzido, Mayawe, Lanjama Jadware. Eddie Ubama Nidu, Yogiga, Honga Pinago, Mate, Mambi me, Hongbigo, Mante Sega, Miu. Me on like it on Managu. Edro Iron me on like it on Managu, so yin, Eddie Yogiha, Tamadi Machibu. Eddie Yogia, Patama Nyane, do that Yogi today.
Sarah explained why the first kind of dart dropped in the middle of the way before it reached the target. That means the person who threw the dart, his strength or his arm strength is not strong to throw it to reach to the target. So that's why it is dropped in the middle of the way. So like in the same manner as the yogi from our noting mind, although the rising and falling phenomenon is present, if our noting mind cannot reach properly to these phenomena of rising and falling, then it is like we are the first kind of that yogi. So if our mind is in that state, it is that yogi cannot accumulate samadhi or concentration.
Dutiya Nya Pilaya Kama, Pimango to a chick day, Chibi me, Mapagu, Pimango Chibi out Jadware. Babilo, Pimango Chibi me, about the letter scene, feed that Buku, Aga Lu needed. Aga Mafida Dragamo, Aga Lu needed Dragamo, Pimango Chibi me, bound on Mapena. Eddie Uma Niwe, Yogi Miale, Honda Pinaguro, Made. Madam Mate, Hungry ye, a sa a songo. Chiang Manyado leve, Mat Sega, Swan Aga, Samadiga are nanny that Doyamu. Hungry ye, the Bogo, Chichimimi, Mapionegu. Sama Hungry, the Bohologa to a pionade. Hungry, Tema, Boni, the Bodia Yago, Baby Chachama Pionegu. Edlo Hungry at the Bow, Bibi Chajama Pioneg at the Boha. Hungry Ayogo, Chichi Mimi, Macman Lo. Chit at the Bosura, in Tatisare, Eddie the Bo Mu Leve, Yogi Maketade.
The second kind of dirt is, of course, it hits the target, but it cannot pierce and it drops off. That means, although the person who is sending the dart is, or throwing the dart is, although that he has the strength, but it is insufficient enough to pierce the target. So that's why it dropped again. So as for a yogi, in the same manner, although this rising and falling phenomenon, we are able to note it from beginning to the end, but from our noting mind, we cannot penetrate it properly to the beginning and the end of this process. So that's why we will be able to see the superficial nature only of this rising and falling phenomena. So, as for a yogi who will be explaining, whenever we interview, we will be explaining just the normal characteristic of this rising and falling, means that yogi mind cannot penetrate and note it precisely. So he cannot see the natural characteristics, what is really present at the rising and falling phenomenon. That means one is failing to note precisely and attentively. So this one is like the second kind of touch.
Tatiya miya jaro miya ke thama ka le be a aswan shi de a aswan shi de atwat jaw moh lo at de a ko chain sa pi ro pin nai de atwat jaw moh pin man ko phi pi ro tphek ko pauk pi ro thwat twa de. အဲ့ဒီဥပမာနည်းလိုပဲဖောင်းပေကိုရှုမှန်းတဲ့ယောဂီကလည်းပဲဖောင်းရဲ့အစအဆုံးကိုထိထိမိမိမှန်းနိုင်တယ်ထိထိမိမိမှန်းနိုင်တဲ့အပြင်ဖောင်းပေရဲ့သဘောတရားကိုလည်းပဲသေးသေးချာချာသူကသိတယ်အဲ့ဒါကြောင့်မို့ဖောင်းမှုပိန်မှုရဲ့သဘောရဲ့အစနဲ့အဆုံးနှစ်ခုကိုထိထိမိမိလည်းမှန်းနိုင်ရမယ် ထိထိမိမိမှန်းနိုင်တဲ့အပြင်သဘောတရားရေးရာကိုလည်းပဲသိသိချာချာသိရမယ်အဲ့ဒါလို့သိနိုင်တဲ့ယောဂီမျိုးမှသမာဓိဖြည့်ပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာဉာဏ်ပေါ်လာနိုင်တယ်အဲ့ဒီတတိယမြားနဲ့တူတဲ့ယောဂီမျိုးလည်းရှိတယ်
Like the person who is able to throw the dirt with very strong force, then not only that dirt will hit the target, but it will also pierce the board, so it won't fallen away. So likewise, for the yogis too, who are able to follow the rising and falling phenomenon, they are able to follow from the beginning to the end of the process. And not only they are able to follow the whole of the process, but they are attentively noting which and precise noting is there, so they are seeing all the natural characteristics what are present in the rising and falling phenomenon. So that's why this kind of yogi is able to note from the beginning to the end of the process, and also noting with attentive and precise noting as well. They are seeing the natural characteristics vividly. So this kind of yogi is like the third kind of touch.
နောက်ဖန်ကြတော့ယောဂီတွေကိုကမ္မထမ်းဆရာတွေစပြီးတော့တရားစစ်ပါလိမ့်မယ်တရားဆတဲ့ခါကျတော့အဲ့ဒီမြားသုံးစင်းဟာပေါ်လာပါလိမ့်မယ်ဒါကြောင့်မို့ပထမမြားဒုတိယမြားတတိယမြားအဲ့ဒီမြားသုံးစင်းထဲကနေပြီးတော့ဘယ်မြားမျိုးစားထဲမှာပါတယ်ဆိုတော့ကမ္မထမ်းဆရာတွေကသိပါလိမ့်မယ်ဒါကြောင့်မို့တရားရှုမှတ်တဲ့နေရာမှာကြိုကြိုစားစားလဲရှုမှတ်ဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်ချီချီမီမီမှတ်နိုင်ဖို့လဲလိုအပ်တယ်သဘောတရားရေးရာတွေကိုလည်းပဲအသိဉာဏ်ထဲမှာပိုင်ပိုင်နိုင်နိုင်မှတ်နိုင်ဖို့လဲလိုအပ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါလို့မှတ်နိုင်တဲ့ယောဂီများကတော့ဖြစ်အကြာမီကာလအတွင်းသမာဓိတရားတွေဖြစ်ပေါ်လာပြီးတော့ဝိပဿနာဉာဏ်တွေပေါ်လာနိုင်ပါတယ်
So starting from tomorrow morning, yogi have to go for interview. So when the yogis are reporting to the teachers, in which type or in which category of these three types of dart you will be in, whether you are number 1 type or number 2 or number 3 kind of darts. So as they are reporting, they will be knowing, and the teacher is also knowing too. So that's why, to be able to report properly, Sayadaw encouraged that yogis should try hard in the practice. At the same time, they should note it precisely and attentively. And at the same time, they should be aware of the natural characteristics, what is going on or happening while you are noting so. So if you are able to note it in that manner, within a short time, you sure will accumulate concentration, which will conduce you to attain vipassana wisdom.
တရားကိုရှုမှတ်တဲ့အခါမှာဟိုအာယုံဒီအာယုံရွေးချယ်ပြီးတော့လိုက်ပြီးတော့ရှာဖွေပြီးတော့မမှတ်ရဘူးပေါ်နေတဲ့အာယုံတစ်ခုကိုသာလည်းမှတ်ရတယ်ထင်ရှားနေတဲ့ပေါ်နေတဲ့အာယုံကိုသာမှတ်ရတယ်ဟိုဟာကောင်းလို့ဒီဟာကောင်းလို့အာယုံတွေကိုရွေးချယ်ရှာဖွေပြီးတော့မမှတ်ရအဲ့ဒါလိုအာယုံတွေကိုရွေးချယ်ရှာဖွေပြီးတော့မှတ်တဲ့ယောဂီဟာတမာတိမဖြစ်ဘူးဒါကြောင့်ပေါ်လွင်ထင်ရှားနေတဲ့အာယုံကိုသာလျှင်ထိထိမိမိမှတ်ဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်
While we are noting in this meditation, we shouldn't choose which kind of object will suits me and so forth. Then if you are choosing this object or that object, then you cannot obtain samadhi. The proper way of practicing in this meditation means you have to note to the most prominent or the most striking object whatever occurred at the present moment. But instead, if you are trying to choose this object or that object, then you are not in the line of this practice, and it will make you slow to accumulate samadhi or concentration. So that's why in our mind we should note it, that while we are noting the object, we should note to the most striking or the most obvious object that occurred at the present moment, and we should note it with due attentiveness.
ဖောင်းပေဆိုတဲ့အာယုဟာအမတန်ထင်ရှားပေါ်လွင်နေတဲ့အာယုပါပဲအဲ့ဒီဖောင်းပေအာယုအပြင်ခုနပြောတဲ့အတိုင်းကောင်းလို့ရလိုက်ပြီးတော့ရှာဖွေပြီးတော့ရှုမှတ်တဲ့ယောဂီများတမာတိမဖြစ်ဘူးဆိုတာလဲကိုသိသွားပြီဥပမာဘာနဲ့တူကြလဲလို့ဆိုတော့အစားအစာကိုစားတဲ့အခါမှာအစားအစာကိုသိပြီးတော့ရွေးချယ်လွန်အားကြီးတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာအာဟာရဓာတ်နဲ့ပြီးတော့ကျန်းမာရေးတဲ့အားနဲ့လာတတ်တယ်အဲ့ဒီဥပမာနည်းလိုပဲထင်ရှားနေတဲ့ဖောက်ပေအာယုံကိုမမှတ်ဘဲနဲ့စိတ်နှောက်ကိုပါပြီးတော့ဟိုနေရာဒီနေရာကိုတွေးတော့စဉ်းစားဆင်ခြင်ပြီးတော့မြော့ပြီးတော့အာယုံနောက်ကိုပါနေမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီယောဂီဟာတမာတိမဖြစ်တဲ့အပြင်တမာတိရဲ့အန္တရာယ်ပင်ဖြစ်လာနိုင်တယ်ဒါကြောင့်မို့အာယုံတွေကိုမရွေးချယ်ပဲနဲ့ပေါ်လွင်ထင်ရှားနေတဲ့ဖောင်းပေအာယုံကိုသာလည်းခိတိမိမိမှတ်ပါ
Sayadaw explained in the field of our practice, rising and falling phenomenon of our abdomen is very obvious. It is very evident. So we have to note or focus to the rising and falling phenomenon as a primary object. But instead, if we are trying to focus our mind on the other object which are not really obvious or striking, this way or that way, then that yogi cannot accumulate samadhi. There will be no concentration. So this is somewhat like Sayadaw explained as in the eating manner. If you are too choosy and you don't want to eat this or that, and you will eat only what you like a little, then there is no enough of nutriment in you, as well your health will be also weakened. So likewise, if we are trying to search what kind of object suits me, this and that, then that means you are drifted away with your mind flow. If you are carried away or drifted away with your mind flow, then you cannot accumulate concentration at all. Not only you fail to accumulate concentration, that way of mind even become endangered or opposing to accumulate concentration. So therefore, in our mind, Sayadaw says we must mark in our mind that we must be able to follow the primary object or the most striking object, rising, falling, which is very obvious.
သတိပဋ္ဌာန်ရှုမှတ်တဲ့ယောဂီများအတွက်ဗုဒ္ဓအထူးညွှန်ကြားတဲ့စကား2ရပ်ရှိတယ်။တရားရှုမှတ်နေတဲ့ယောဂီများဟာအတွင်းမှာလည်းရပ်ပြီးတော့မနေရဘူးတဲ့။အပြင်မှာလည်းရပ်ပြီးတော့မနေရဘူးတဲ့။အတွင်းမှာရပ်နေရင်လည်းသမာဓိမဖြစ်ဘူး။အပြင်မှာရပ်နေရင်လည်းသမာဓိမဖြစ်ဘူးတဲ့။ဒါကြောင့်အတွင်းအပြင်နှစ်ဌာနမှာစိတ်ကိုရပ်ပြီးမထဖို့ဘုရားကအထူးညွှန်ကြားတော်မူတယ်
Sayadaw explained that as guided by the Lord Buddha, while we are in the field of meditation, we shouldn't stop inside, as well we shouldn't stop outside. So if we stop inside or if we stop outside either, then there will be no concentration or samadhi. So that's why Sayadaw explained that Buddha remind in the due practice of Satipatthana, we shouldn't stop inside nor outside.
အတွင်းမှာရတဲ့ဆိုတာဘာလဲဆိုတော့တရားရှုမှတ်ပွားများလာတဲ့အခါမှာခန္ဓာကိုယ်ပေါ်ပေါ်ပါပါဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ကိုယ်ရောစိတ်ရောချမ်းသာပြီးတော့ကောင်းပြီးတော့နေတတ်တယ်။အဲဒါလိုခန္ဓာကိုယ်တွင်းမှာအကောင်းလေးတွေပေါ်လာတဲ့အခါကျတော့ချမ်းသာနေတဲ့အခါကျတော့ရှုမှတ်မှုအာယုံကြီးကိုမရောက်ဘဲနဲ့အဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာနေတဲ့ဒုက္ခဝေဒနာရဲ့သဘောတရားကိုခံစားပြီးတော့မိန်မြော့ပြီးတော့နေတဲ့သဘောကိုအဲ့ဒါအတွင်းမှာရတယ်လို့ဆိုတယ်။ဒါကြောင့်မို့ယောဂီများအတွင်းမှာလည်းမရဖို့ဘုရားကထူးမှကြားတော်မူတယ်
Sayadaw explained the meaning of stopping inside. Stopping inside means as we are practicing on, then at one time we feel very pleasant, and both your body and mind are in complacence. So you feel very calm, serene, and light. So in that way, you are unable to note the object very precisely as before, but you immerse yourself with your mind, you immerse yourself in Sukha Vedana or the pleasantness feeling. You are enjoying in this pleasantness feeling and you forgot to note precisely as before. That condition is considered as stoppage insight.
အပြင်မှာရတယ်ဆိုတဲ့သဘောကမိမိတွေးကြုံခဲ့မှုတဲ့မျက်စိနဲ့မြင်ခဲ့မှုတဲ့အာယုံတွေနားနဲ့ကြားခဲ့မှုတဲ့အာယုံတွေနှာခေါင်းနဲ့နှာရှုခဲ့မှုတဲ့အာယုံတွေစတဲ့အာယုခေါင်းလေးတွေကိုမိမိကရှေ့ကခံစားခဲ့မှုတယ်အဲ့ဒီမိမိခံစားခဲ့မှုတဲ့တွေးကြုံခဲ့မှုတဲ့အာယုံတွေကိုစိတ်ကူးတွေးတော့စဉ်းစားဆင်ခြင်ပြီးတော့ရှုမှတ်နေတဲ့အာယုံပေါ်မှာစိတ်မရောက်ပဲအပြင်အာယုံတွေပေါ်မှာစိတ်ပြတ်လွင့်ပြီးတော့နေတဲ့သဘောကိုအပြင်ရတယ်လို့ဆိုတယ်။အဲဒါလို့အပြင်မှာရနေရင်လည်းပဲသမာဓိမဖြစ်ဘူး။ဒါကြောင့်အပြင်မှာမရနိုင်အောင်လည်းပဲကြိုးစားဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်။
Sayadaw explained the second part, that is stop at outside. Stop outside means that is before we take up this practice from our sense of seeing, hearing or from nose and etc. we have encountered the sensual pleasures from the sense of seeing and etc. So to all these sensuous objects we remembered or in our mind. So in our mind, as we remember, we have been carried away with these thoughts or memories, and we cannot live up to the present moment, whatever the present objects are occurring there, and we fail to note, then you are carried away with the sensuous object in your mind. So that means Buddha explained as it is stopping at outside. So that's why Sayadaw explained as a yogi too, we must guard our mind not to stop outside.
Samadhi Dukha Padathana lo hora muda jamu. Samadhi Pikin ye anika so ajaw Dukha Vedana be. Shumani de yogi ha ko yo se yo chan chan za phit mya de so yin adi yogi ha samadhi phit luwe de phit de samadhi le achain ja ti de akay ywe yogi ga dukha vedana twe ne be long phan pi ro ne ya de so yin samadhi phit khe de phit de samadhi le be ja shi so ma ti hu da ja dukha vedana ha ko sai ne ba chanda mu so de dukha vedana ha samadhi phit kin ajaung phit de twe jaw mo Dukha Vedanaပေါ်လာတဲ့အခါကိုယ်စိတ်နှစ်ပါးချမ်းသာနေတဲ့အခါမှာအဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာနေတဲ့သဘောတရားထက်မှာရပြီးတော့မနေဖို့လဲပဲအထူးကြိုးစားဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်
So Sayadaw explained to accumulate samadhi or concentration, the proximate cause or near cause is Sukha Vedana. That is pleasant feeling in ourselves. So if a meditator is having pleasantness in the line of his practice, one is able to accumulate samadhi or concentration easily. And that accumulated concentration will also retain in you for quite a long time. So as for the other yogis, who have to contemplate on dukkha vedana, that is unpleasant feelings. As for the yogi who have to note much and more of unpleasant feeling or pain, then it is hard or difficult for them to accumulate samadhi, and even though they may accumulate samadhi, this samadhi cannot be retained long. So as for a person or a yogi who have accumulated samadhi with pleasant feeling or sukha vedana, then you have to note so, because as it is serene and very light and very calm in both our body and mind, so most of the yogis, we need to stop at that point. So we have to remind ourselves not to forget to note on it.
Vipassanaတရားဆိုတာဟာဒုက္ခဝေဒနာနဲ့ယဉ်နှီးပြီးတော့အထူရတဲ့တရားဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့တရားရှုမှတ်နေတဲ့အခါမှာနာတာကျင်တာကြိုက်တာခဲတာစရှိတဲ့ဒုက္ခဝေဒနာတွေဟာယောဂီတိုင်းမှာဒါတွေ့ရစမြဲဖြစ်တယ်ဗတ္တိကရတ္တသုတ်တန်ရဲ့လူရင်းသဘောတရားမှာကတော့လွန်ခဲ့ပြီးတဲ့အတိတ်ကာလကဖြစ်ခဲ့တဲ့အာယုန်တွေစီကိုလည်းစိတ်မရောက်စေဖို့မဖြစ်ပေါ်သေးတဲ့အနာဂတ်အာယုန်တွေစီကိုလည်းပဲစိတ်မရောက်စေဖို့ဖြစ်စေပြစ္ဆုတ်ပံအာယုန်ပေါ်မှာသာလျှင်ထိထိမိမိမှတ်ဖို့ထိထိမိမိမှတ်တဲ့အပြင်သဘောဉာဏ်တရားတွေသက်ရောက်သည့်အထိဝိပဿနာပညာတွေဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတဲ့အထိထိထိမိမိမှတ်နိုင်ဖို့ရန်ဒါအဓိကဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဒါကြောင့်ဖောင်းပေဆိုတဲ့အာယုံဟာအမြဲတမ်းဖြစ်နေတဲ့အလွန်ထင်ရှားတဲ့ပြစ္ဆုတ်ပံအာယုံတွေဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့အဲ့ဒီဖောင်းပေအာယုံပေါ်မှာထိထိမိမိမှတ်နိုင်အောင်ကြိုးစားကြပါလို့ဆိုလိုပါတယ်
In accordance with today's discourse, Sayadaw explained that In accordance with this Bhattikarata Sutta, our mind shouldn't gone back to the past object or the memories. Our mind shouldn't go to the future object which has not yet happened. But instead, we need to keep our mind down on to the present object. So in that way, we should always live to the present moment continuously. So if we can note it to the present moment or to the present object with attentive and precise noting, within the short time, you will be seeing the natural characteristics of this nature, Dhamma nature, and you will be attaining Vipassana wisdom. So, to enhance this way, while we are noting the rising and falling of our abdomen, Sayadaw reminds us that this rising and falling phenomenon is always occurring or happening in the abdomen. So, and also it is very obvious. So that's why, as a yogi's duty, our duty is to note on it precisely and attentively.
ဒါတော့ခန္ဓာပမာသုတ်တံကဟောလာခဲ့တဲ့အင်္ဂါ၈ပါးနဲ့ပြီးဆုံးတဲ့ယောဂီဖြစ်အောင်ကြိုးစားပြီးတော့ဒီကနေ့ဟောတဲ့ဗတ္တိကာရတသုတ်တံမှာလာတဲ့တရားရှုနည်းမှန်နည်းကိုရှုမှတ်နိုင်ပြီးလျှင်မိမိနဲ့တိတိလျောက်ပတ်တဲ့တရားတွေကိုမိမိလိုလားတဲ့ဆန္ဒရှိတဲ့အတိုင်းရှုမှတ်ပွားများနိုင်ကြပြီလျှင်ထိုရှုမှတ်ပွားများမှုကြောင့်ဩနာတိဒုက္ခဘေးကကင်းတဲ့အငြိတ္တနိဗ္ဗာန်တရားတော်များကိုယောဂီတွေအားလုံးမျက်မှောက်ပြုနိုင်ကြပါစေလို့ဆုတောင်းရင်းဒီနေ့တရားကိုဆုံးသတ်လိုက်ပါတယ်
Sayadaw explained that as a yogi we should remember in our mind those 8 factors that were preached yesterday in accordance with Darukhanopama Sutta, and also by remembering the facts that Sayadaw is explaining today in accordance with Bhattikarata Sutta, then by implying all these facts in our mind, in accordance with these guidance, we should practice properly. So as we practice so, in accordance with our chanda or desire to do so, we should cherish and practicing. In the end, we should meet the ends. Now, Sayadaw have blessed to all the yogis that may you all be able to practice properly in accordance with your wish or desire to do so, so as to salvage yourself from the aging, sickness and death to meet deathlessness or Nibbana.